If all you care about in MotoGP is who wins the championship, you must be a really miserable person. Welcome back to Monday Morning MotoGP. We were just in Assen, the TT circuit, the Cathedral of Speed. Thank you for joining me here, making sure you're like, follow, sharing, mash all the buttons, unsubscribe. We're doing this live on TikTok, as always, and then it's going to be posted in its entirety on YouTube, along with all the other episodes of Monday Morning MotoGP. We've got a lot to talk about today. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about why winning the championship isn't the only thing that matters in MotoGP. We're going to talk about the development, ups and downs of Aprilia and Yamaha. We're going to talk about Alex Marquez just not attacking Marc Marquez because he's afraid of his brother. And then we're also going to, of course, we have to talk yet again about Jorge Martin and Aprilia's ongoing soapy battle. Now, first of all, let's talk about the championship, with Alex Marquez maybe going to be missing some time, or at least slowed down due to that injury that he sustained in Assen to the left hand. He's having surgery. He's not going to be as fast right out the gate. Again, they said it in the broadcast, Sachsenring is a very intense left-hand circuit. Having a broken left hand, a recently surgically repaired left hand, is not going to do Alex any favors. And with all of the other title contenders so far back, we never like to say, well, it's over, because anything can happen in MotoGP. We saw Marc crash, twice this weekend? And both of those could have been really bad. When he got up and he was flexing his own hand and wrist, you never know. That could be end of season for a rider. So we don't like to say it's over. But the chances of anyone reeling in Marc Marquez fair and square this year for the title is not going to happen. But again, if you're just watching MotoGP because all you care about is who wins the title, you got to be miserable, right? You got to be miserable watching every week, because only one rider can win the title. And at the beginning of every season, as much as we'd all like to think, oh my gosh, the beginning of every season, it's wide open, anyone can win. Not really. At the beginning of every season, in basically every sport you watch, this is not just for MotoGP. In most sports you watch, there are only a handful of teams, or in this case, riders, that can actually win the world title. As optimistic as you Jet fans are at the beginning of every year, not really happening, is it? And I don't think we were thinking that Sumkat Chantra was going to win the MotoGP championship this year, or Johan Zarco, or Luca Marini, or Joan Mir, or Fabio Quartararo, any of the Aprilias, any of the KTMs. We were thinking these are championship contenders this year. So if they're not, and the only thing that matters is winning the championship, then you can stop watching, hand it to Marc Marquez, and be done with it. And be very grumpy about it if you don't like Marc Marquez. If you're a Marc Marquez fan, man, it's the best time in your life right now. We're going back to 2019, how good he is this year. But I don't think MotoGP is just about who wins the championship. Hell, I don't think any sport is just about who wins the championship. You have to take your wins when you get them, and you celebrate them like they deserve. Yes, losses suck. Yes, not going to the playoffs sucks. Yes, not winning your division and winning a title. It's not the best thing. No one wants to be, as Ricky Bobby would say, the first loser. Either first or you're last. We all have that mentality, I think. But when it comes to sports, why are we watching every week if the only thing we talk about is the championship? And that's all I hear from people online is, oh, Marc's going to win the championship. Only Ducatis can win the championship. It's so boring, blah, 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 blah. Well, there's a lot more interesting things than just the championship and what is at stake with that in a MotoGP weekend. And I want to just run through a list of things that got me excited this weekend that have nothing to do with the championship race, that have nothing to do with Marc Marquez. I mean, one of them kind of does. But I just want to talk about, when I watch a whole MotoGP weekend, what I kind of get excited for is not just, oh, who takes the maximum points, and that's kind of it. So let's talk about a few of them. Let's talk about Fermin Aldeguer absolutely sliding that bike sideways in practice. If you didn't go sit up and take notice to that and get excited about that, that was incredible. I mean, the way he was pushing, really testing the limits of that bike, had that thing sideways. This guy is a rookie, pushing it to its absolute limit, pushing himself to his absolute limit, and I love to see it. Also in practice, we have Marc Marquez crashing in that first practice, getting up, looking like he may have like dinged the elbow, dinged the wrist. I mean, is he even going to get back on the track? Not only does he get back on the track, he finishes top of the session. Are you not entertained? Like, come on. Now we had second practice on Friday, the one that counts for qualifying too. You know, the one that actually matters. The riders have to put in a soft tire and push. We had 4 manufacturers in the top 4 in that practice session. Just the Ducati Cup, right? Okay, maybe when it comes to wins and championships, it is. But not in that practice. 4 manufacturers, top 4 places. Then we move to qualifying, and Fabio Quartararo puts that Yamaha on pole yet again. The Yamaha is the slowest bike down the straights. Last year, it's a dog. He should leave. He should go to Aprilia. He should get the hell out of there. 4th pole position that Fabio has done this year, and it just proves what an amazing rider he is on that motorcycle and how fun he is to watch. Like, just watch this guy ride when it really, really matters. In the clutch, it's freaking awesome. It hasn't turned into Sunday results. We know that. You don't have to tell that. You can comment that to me if you'd like, but just know I already know this. What else did I enjoy? Bez throwing it sideways during the race in the same corner that we saw Eldegaard throwing it sideways in practice. Like, we could see live how hard Bez was pushing to try to keep pace with Marc Marquez. He did not want to get second place. He wanted to win that race. He was in full attack mode, and it was really fun to watch how hard Bez would respond to Marc every time Marc started to push. Absolutely amazing. I'm going to go down to the lower classes. What about the battle between Diogo Moreira and Aaron Canet in Moto 2 at the front? The entire freaking race on each other's wheels. Aaron Canet said, Diogo, if you want a war, I'm going to give you one. And they gave us one, and guess what? The fans are the ones who gets to win. Also in Moto 2, we saw Joe Roberts fighting his way forward to 5th place, fighting with Manu Gonzalez, fighting with the top riders yet again. I hope he's back fully fit. I hope he's ready to fight at the front. It was awesome to see, both American Racing Team riders in the top 6, Joe with the top 5 finish. It was awesome to see Pedro Acosta actually fighting with the guys in the front and not like letting them have an inch. Yes, the crash with Alex Marquez was super unfortunate. It was not on purpose. Anyone who's saying that Pedro kind of wiped him out, you don't know anything about motorcycle racing, stop talking. That's nonsense. They made contact. Alex went down. It sucks. But Pedro fighting, being confident enough on the KTM to actually fight, love that. Also having 2 KTMs in the top 5 with Maverick Vinales following in there, that's pretty amazing. Again, it's not the Ducati Cup if you have an Aprilia and 2 KTMs in the top 5. And then let's talk about Fabio Di Giannantonio's late race pace. Like how good this guy has been in the second half of races. If he could only qualify, this guy suddenly is a title contender. But it's still fun to watch him ride. It's fun to watch him move through on his teammate. It's fun to watch him kind of pick his way through the pack from these bad grid positions. And hopefully he can figure that qualifying out. But let's not forget, he's working with the same problems that Pecco is working with less experience on the Ducati. And finally, I don't want to overlook the number 35, Somkat Chantra, getting his first MotoGP World Championship point. Did a lot of people crash in front of him? Yes, they did. Do I care? No, I don't. Congrats, dude. World Championship point. Put a feather. Take the victory where you can get it. I don't care whether people say you earned it or not. You're a MotoGP rider. You're in the paddock. You scored a World Championship point. Congratulations. See, it's not just the championship. So quit moping about, oh, it's just a championship. It's all that matters. It's not all that matters. And if it is to you, I'm sorry. Don't come crying to me. All right, next, moving on is to the development. And the way that fans and even commentators like to talk about development is whether or not a team has problems or the problem has been quote-unquote fixed. Well, the problem's been fixed. Yamaha's 1-lap pace is fixed because they're getting pole positions. Oh, Aprilia's race pace is fixed. Their qualifying is fixed because, Bez was on the front 2 rows this week. But as we know, if we really look deeper, we know that development is a story of ups and downs. And for Fabio Quartararo, yes, that 1-lap pace is there when he's by himself. We see him go out by himself on track because you know how much faster he is through the corner than most of the other riders in the paddock. When there is someone not parked in the middle of a corner, He rolls through those corners so much faster than anyone else. It's the only way he puts that Yamaha on the front row and on pole position as much as he does. We know he's fantastic in one lap speed, but he still can't quite get the Sundays, the Saturdays, the races down. Crashes on Saturday, fell way back, was kind of, trying to get around some nasty crashes early up. Did actually a pretty good job of avoiding action and staying in this race and not crashing out on Sunday. But then we did see him work through to 10th place in the end, doing some overtakes, doing some good things. But the problem isn't fixed over there at Yamaha, nor is it hopeless. The development is a incremental steps, is just a long, has anyone seen those inclines that go up the side of mountains where it's like 2,000, 3,000 steps? That's what development is. It is just climbing those steps one at a time and trying to figure things out and going as fast as you can, but making sure that you're not doing mistakes that are going to send you down the wrong path. And so I think a lot of people can look at a weekend like this one and go, oh, well, the Yamaha sucks because they were nowhere on Sunday, and the Aprilia, that's the second best bike on the grid now. I have literally heard comments from other MotoGP fans all season long. I've heard people say, Honda has the second best bike on the grid. I've heard people say with their whole chest, Aprilia have the second best bike on the grid. I've heard people say it's KTM, and I've heard a lot of people say it's Yamaha because of what Fabio's doing in qualifying and also what Jack Miller has been able to do on the Yamaha. Oh, they got the second best bike on the grid. The sad news is that none of them there are able to compete with Ducati week in and week out, and that's going to be true all season long. I don't really trust any of these other manufacturers week to week to week to week. I've said earlier, Aprilia, to me, is good at like 3 or 4 tracks a season. They're good at Silverstone. We saw that from Bez. Bez is good at Mugello. I don't know how good the Aprilia is at Mugello, but we know Bez is good at Mugello. We saw that. And the Aprilia is good at Assen. From here on out, if things hold the way I think they may, it's going to be a tough road for Aprilia for most of the rest of the season. We don't know what they can do in Brno. It's been a long time since we've been there. I don't really have track of their record there, but most of the tracks coming up are not real Aprilia juggernaut tracks. And so we could see Yamaha leap back in front of them as far as finishing Sunday Grand Prix. And we're not seeing Bez on a podium as much as we are seeing Quartararo a little closer. But development is a game of comparison. I had a fan ask me this week, well, why is the Yamaha so much slower than it was when, in 2021, when Fabio won the championship? And it's not that his Yamaha is slower than it was in 2021, it's that everyone else is making the steps forward quicker. He's going around this track faster than he's ever gone. These pole positions are lap records. They're breaking lap records, which means he's going faster than has ever gone before. It's just the Ducati's a little better. The KTM is a little better. Sometimes the Aprilia is a little bit better. It's a race of comparison between what we can do and what our opponents are doing, and it doesn't happen all at once. It isn't just magically freaking fixed. And so I think a lot of people are very hard on Quartararo going, oh, well, he's got qualifying down, but what's wrong with him on Sunday? The bike in a crowd can't really exploit all of its strengths, and its exit out of a corner isn't quite as fast, and he's getting overtaken by faster bikes. He's got to race people. When he's out by himself in qualifying, he's got the speed. The bike's fast. Now I'm going to do a whole nother section probably next week about the V4 and the inline 4 and how people keep saying, oh, Yamaha needs to go to a V4 and fix their problem. Again, there is no magic fix. We're going to talk about that next week. But V4 does not fix just automatically Yamaha's problem, because Yamaha has a problem with electronics. They have a problem with grip. They have a problem with front end chatter. They've got a lot of problems that don't necessarily directly reflect that engine. Some things, maybe top speed, for sure, fine. They're pushing too much air with the a little bit wider, taller inline 4. Okay, but again, we'll talk about that another time. Development is incremental steps. I think both Aprilia and Yamaha have taken steps this year. I think Aprilia is faking it a little bit. I think it's giving you guys some hope that, oh man, they're really fixed and Bez can, be more consistent. I don't think it's going to be a consistent motorcycle every single week. I would love to be wrong. I don't think I am. And as far as the Yamaha, they made a clear step from last year. I said last year their goal needed to be into Q2 every single week, finishing in the top 10 in the races. And now we're seeing Fabio Quartararo not only get in to Q2, but lead sessions. That's a step forward. Now they have to work on the race. Now they have to work on Saturday and Sunday to make sure he's finishing consistently in the top 5 and 6 and not falling back to 14th and having to just drag his way to 10th. There's definitely some light at the end of the tunnel for some of these manufacturers, but again, Ducati could move the goalposts tomorrow. If Pecco all of a sudden figures out his issues, how much faster can he go? And so it's a game of comparison. It's a slow game. And as much as we want instant results and we want the problems to be fixed so we can see Yamaha or Aprilia or KTM or Honda back at the front, it's just not how it works. And you guys can continue to debate who the second best bike in the grid is, but I'm going to tell you right now, the second best bike on the grid is a Ducati. Behind the first best bike on the grid, which is a Ducati of a different year. You can tell me which one you think is better, the 24 or the 25. But I'm telling you, the two best bikes in the grid are both Ducatis. Everyone else is fighting for third. We could have an argument for any of them, why they're third. Does it really matter? Because unlike the first segment we talked about, championship does matter to these riders. That's what they are out to win. They're not out there to be on the third best bike. Now, I also want to address the comments Fabio Quartararo was quoted as saying, I need a competitive machine now from Yamaha, or I'm going to walk. And then Yamaha kind of came out and said, well, that was part of like an hour-long interview, and you guys took one sentence and then ran with this headline, which I think it's both sides can be right here, where I think Fabio does deserve a motorcycle that can win. But I also don't think these comments are really an indictment of Yamaha and the fact they're not working well. Like I said, they've made improvements. They're doing better than they did last year. They're more consistently on pole, more consistently in the front half of the grid in the start of races. They're finishing top 10s. So I don't think it's a question of them not trying hard. It may be a nudge from Quartararo saying, hey guys, we're not there yet. Let's not just rest. Let's not just take pole positions and go, job done. Which I don't think anyone over there at Yamaha is. But I don't think what was kind of inferred in that article, or at least in the clickbait headline, was, well, if he doesn't get a bike after next year, he's gone. He's just out of here. No, I think Quartararo is smart enough to know it's incremental steps. He's going to take step by step. And as long as he sees them improving, as long as they look at the problems they have and try to make them better, he's going to stick with Yamaha. Because for one, where else is he going to go? There isn't a ride available right now at factory Ducati. Maybe Pecco Bagnaia gets shown the door. I don't see that happening really quite yet. But where's he going to go? That's a really better, consistent ride. And I know, Aprilia, you should go to Aprilia and win a championship. Stop it. Stop it. Anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is Alex Marquez facing the criticism that he doesn't attack Marc Marquez as much as he should. Doesn't seem like he's very aggressive against his brother. Is he afraid of his brother? Does he not like to really race his brother? Is he letting Marc win? Is he letting Marc off easy? The criticism goes all the way from the championship is rigged because Alex just plays wingman to let his brother win, all the way to Alex is just a little inept on the bike and doesn't know racecraft, which is okay, sure. But then we saw on Sunday Marco Bezzecchi in a very similar position that Alex Marquez was on Saturday, trying to catch Marc at the front. We saw them both, Bez and Alex, in the right-handers in the fast-flowing sections, come right up to the back of Marc Marquez. But as we went into the left turns and then the right into the chicane, or left, right, I forget left, right. As we go into the chicane at the end of the lap, Marc pulls out just enough to not be attacked into those corners. Now, whether or not you believe Alex Marquez is attacking his brother the way he should, I guarantee you Bez was absolutely trying to win that race. There's no question he was trying to win that race. And Bez is ultra aggressive. If there was a lunge to be had that he felt like he could make, he would have 100% make it. It didn't come. I don't always take riders at their word in the press conferences and with the media, but I do take Alex Marquez at his word when he says, the reason I don't attack Marc is he's faster than me. It is really difficult, especially when you're on pretty much the same bike, to attack a rider in front of you if he's faster than you, especially if he's faster than you going into the sections where overtakes are possible. Not every corner is an overtaking spot. We would love to think that every corner on a racetrack is somewhere where a pass can be made, it's not true, especially when a rider is riding as well as Marc Marquez. Some of even the overtaking zones aren't overtaking zones because of the way he's riding. So yes, could Alex just let off the brakes, throw it up the inside, and just run his brother off the track? Sure. He's risking crashing himself. He's risking crashing Marc. He's risking penalties that would put him off the podium. He's not going to do that. And either is Marco Bezzecchi. We've seen how much bad blood is between Marco and Marc Marquez at times. It seems like they're a little friendlier these days, but we've seen these two go at it. So you think that Bez is just letting Marc Marquez run away with it because of some weird loyalty or something? Like, now you need your head examined. Bez was trying his hardest. He also couldn't beat Marc Marquez, even though they're running very similar paces. It wasn't about getting in the slipstream and pulling out and taking that advantage in the draft. That just wasn't there. And so sometimes we all want to see overtakes. We all want to see fighting at the front. We all want to see battles. But I think what we saw on Sunday was a battle of the clock. It was one person putting in a really fast lap and then the next guy matching him, not letting him get away. And Bez kept Marc honest the entire race. And Marc could have very well made him make a mistake and let Bez through, or opened a door and gave him opportunity. There was a couple times Marc ran a little wide and Bez was able to creep a little bit closer, but then again Marc pulls out a gap, not giving him really any opportunity, didn't really make enough mistakes for Bez to push any further. That's just sometimes how the game works. The opportunity doesn't always present itself in the way we think it might. And that's what we saw on Sunday from Bez. And so I think we got to cut Alex a little bit of a break on he's too easy on his brother. Now, I do fully believe that he would be much more likely to make a sloppy pass on someone who wasn't his brother. But Alex has also been slapped on the wrist a few times for some sloppy passes. The Simon Crafar and the stewards are looking out for this stuff with him. And he wants to make it clean. And yes, with his brother, he does want to make it ultra clean. He wants to make sure he doesn't send them both into the gravel. The last thing they both want to do is injure each other. But I don't think that means he's letting Marc off the hook more than any other rider. So very last, let's talk about Jorge Martin and Aprilia, because this has moved from kind of a war of words to what I would call the posturing portion of our drama between Jorge Martin, his contract, and Aprilia. We knew that Jorge Martin wanted to exercise that clause. We don't necessarily know the conversations that happened behind the scenes when Jorge's representative says, well, we wanted to extend it a little later in the season and give the Aprilia time and give Jorge a time on it, and they didn't want to do that, and so we just exercised it now. We don't know what that exact conversation was like, but what we do know is that they've both taken now to the media to basically say their side of the story. Jorge has said, I'm free agent. That clause is in the contract. I have exercised it through my representation, through my mouth. I have exercised that right. I am now a free agent and I can talk to whoever I want. And Aprilia is saying, not until the lawyers get a hold of it. As far as we're concerned, there's no clause that has been exercised. That clause, the way it's written, doesn't cover what Jorge is saying it's covering. And so he's still an Aprilia rider. Other manufacturers back off. This why I call it the posturing section of this little spat is that I think both parties are waiting and seeing if the other are going to blink before they actually have to go to an arbitration or go to court and have a judge settle this. Jorge Martin is saying, I'm a free agent. I'm not coming back, Aprilia. Waiting to see if they blink and say, well, I guess we have to look for another rider. Because the paddock is tight. He's going to know if they have other feelers out for other riders. If they're looking at Pedro Acosta and going over to KTM saying, hey, can we get you over here? Looking at Moto2 riders or whatever they're going to do. He's making this statement and then sitting back and looking and seeing what the reaction is. And the reaction from Aprilia is, no, we will go to court. We will fight this to the death. We paid you a lot of money to come here. We expect you to ride for us. And they're going to see if Jorge Martin blinks and goes, well, maybe if I come back and do this special test before my injury and things really go well, or maybe there's some sort of on-track performance Aprilia can do with Marco Bezzecchi, getting on a podium perhaps, or a win here and there, that would convince Jorge Martin they actually do have a package that he also can win with. And so I don't put too much stock in the actual words that are said now. I think right now we're in a who blinks first game to see if we have to go to phase 3, which I think starts being the legal part. And taking it from Carmelo Espoleta's comments about, hey, Jorge Martin can't ride in MotoGP unless he is free of that Aprilia contract, one way or the other. He's not just allowed to freelance and sign with another deal before this gets resolved. So whether it's you guys figure it out on your own, or whether it's a judge tells me, you know, who owns Jorge's rights as a rider, he doesn't get to ride in MotoGP until we figure that out. That is not a knock on Jorge Martin from MotoGP, at least I don't think so. I think that's just a clear message to both sides, which is, yes, you're both posturing now. Don't do it too long. Get to the nuts and bolts. If you're going to go to court, take it to court. Let's get it moving, because we all know how fast and speedy courts are. Yeah, they're not as quick as MotoGP bikes. They're a little bit, the wheels of justice move slow, especially in civil matters. And so I think it was Dorna's way, or Liberty Media Now's way of saying, guys, work this out. Because we're not going to be in this middle ground for the whole season. And you're basically holding the entire rider market hostage, because Honda's not going to make moves until they know whether or not Jorge Martin is free. Other manufacturers might not be making moves until they know if Jorge Martin is free or Pedro Acosta is free. They want to know information before they make decisions and miss out on a once-in-a-generation talent. Now, my opinion on the whole matter from the beginning is I do think Jorge Martin has jumped the gun a little bit. As much as y'all out there continue to say I'm an Aprilia hater because I said I don't think anyone is going to win a world title on that Aprilia anytime soon, I do think Martin hasn't really given the Aprilia its real fair shake at this point. Yeah, he probably knows deep in his heart what I've said all along, is that I don't think they're a true title contender. I tend to think that that Honda and Yamaha and maybe even KTM will be back to the front before Aprilia is really ready to win a world title. Can they win races? Yes, of course they can win races. Not every week. I don't think they'd be competitive every week. A bad week for Aprilia is going to be 12th and 13th, even when they're trying their hardest, not crashing. Anyway, the thing I worry about Jorge is that, where are you going, man? Like, oh, he can just go over to Honda. Honda's shown some pace here and there. Again, their problems aren't solved. So you could jump over there next year and it'd be a complete disaster. You could have a Marc Marquez, 2023, the bad year, the couple bad years Mark had over there on Honda. You could go over there and it's a disaster. Jorge Lorenzo couldn't make it work. Pol Espargaro couldn't make it work. Who says that going over to Honda is a magic bullet? Who says Yamaha's a magic bullet? None of them are. So Jorge Martin has to kind of feel it out and do his best, but part of this kind of reminds me of Daniel Ricciardo leaving Red Bull, where you go, hey man, you're in a pretty good spot. Are you in the best spot? Now you have to be Max Verstappen's teammate. You're riding in Aprilia. Are you in the best spot? No, but are you in a bad spot? And could the spot you move to be worse? And if the legal things don't go your way, could you be looking that you don't even have an eligible ride in MotoGP next year? If the courts rule against you, but you are so dead set on not returning to Aprilia, you're out. You have to sit out a year until that contract kind of runs its course. It's happened in sports. So we don't know exactly where this is ending. I think Jorge might be, again, like I said, might be jumping the gun a little bit. I understand where he's coming from. He wanted to go over there and win a world title, and I think he's seen the package and go, well, I don't think it's really possible yet. I don't think they're as far along as I thought. Now, the thing that does scare me from the Aprilia side is they are acting a little bit like a little brother in the paddock. We saw how Honda reacted when Marc said he was leaving. At first it was, well, we don't know anything about that, and it was kind of all behind closed doors. And once it was out in the open that Marc was leaving Honda, Honda's attitude was, we don't want a rider riding for us that doesn't want to be here. There are other riders in the sea. We will get back to the front. We are Honda. We are the most winning team in MotoGP history. We'll be fine without Marc Marquez. Maybe not right away, but eventually we'll right this ship. They're not afraid of losing a top-tier rider because they can lure another one in. With what Aprilia is saying about Jorge Martin, they feel a little scared to me. They feel scared that there's not another rider out there they can grab and pull back in and be a Jorge Martin, that someone else might not want to come there the way that Jorge Martin wanted to come there. And that reeks of telling on yourself a little bit. Like, why don't they, at this point, you have a rider who said multiple times to you and the media, I don't want to ride for Aprilia anymore, I'm exercising this right, I'm out. The negotiations are over in my book, I'm out. Then you're going to schedule a test for him to come back from injury? You're going to schedule a special test, give him more track time on a bike he doesn't want to ride? I don't see the point in that. You're going to bring him back to a team he doesn't want to ride for? Say, we're going to hold you to this contract, and we're going to, that's a great way to win a world championship. Or you could have said, all right, Jorge, here's what we say. We get our money back. We don't have to pay you all this freaking money. And open shop, guys. Who wants to come to Aprilia? We got a great motorcycle. Bez is happy. Ayagura's happy. Come on up. Talent of the world unite. Come on over. We can build another Martin. Screw that guy. But instead, it feels like they're just begging him to come back. Please, please, please don't leave me. Feels a little desperate. And maybe they are desperate. I don't know. But either way, this soap opera is going to continue with Jorge Martin and Aprilia for quite some time, until I think a judge is going to have to tell them, you over there, here's what you're going to do. Final say. We're done. And hopefully that comes, I'm guessing, hopefully like right after the summer break, they can all figure this out and move on with their lives or stay married. Don't sleep in the same bedroom, y'all, but you can still stay married. All right, well, that does it for me for this edition of Monday Morning MotoGP. Please like, follow, share, mash all the buttons on TikTok and YouTube. Get all the MotoGP goodness you can handle.